I'm just going to nickname these chapters the cave conversations. Literally everyone has a mini trauma bonding session in the cave, so it's fun.
It wasn't just giving her that gift, it was preserving her past, and he also wasn't using it against her, he was protecting her.
I especially thought it was going to be weird to have a vampire love scene.
It was good, though.
Hi, and welcome to Romantasy Remedy. I'm Whitney.
And I'm Kenzie. We're sisters-in-law and book besties who thrive on daily doses of magic and romance from our favorite fantasy stories.
So, if your emotional support animal is a dragon and your therapist has shadow powers, you're in the right place. Thanks for being here and for liking, rating, and following our show.
Before we get started, this is our official content warning. Simply put, Romantasy Remedy is a podcast for grown-ups. The topics and language will reflect that. Please listen at your comfort level.
And one more thing before we dive into The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent. Our spoiler warning. For most of the episode, there will only be spoilers for chapters 43 through 60. But at the end of today's episode, we will have our spoiler central segment where we make connections to events later in the book and the entire Crowns of Nyaxia series. Don't worry, we'll give another big spoiler warning before Spoiler Central begins.
Thanks, Whit. One of our goals at Romantasy Remedy is to highlight how books in this genre inspire readers. When we see characters facing fears, overcoming challenges, and growing into their potential, it helps us do the same. So each week, we'll choose a quote from the chapters we read to be an affirmation, a phrase to empower and motivate us. And this week's affirmation says, "There she is." Did we use this as an affirmation in Serpent? Yes. Are we mad about using it again? Absolutely not. We love this phrase because we all have times when we, just like Raihn, need the reminder to let our inner queen shine. Don't lose your fire and drive, even when life is throwing some punches. Raihn often says these words to Raihn to acknowledge that she's kicking ass and being unapologetically herself. We can use this phrase to do the very same. And don't forget, you can find a printable version of the affirmation in the show notes in case you want to stick it in your mirror or fridge or wherever. And keep listening to hear more moments like these from the chapters that either inspired, healed, humored, or wooed us. But before we get into that, Whitney is going to recap what happened in this week's section of chapters.
There she is. I love that affirmation. So good.
One of my favorites.
Raihn. Okay. The recap. Focus. Here we go. Previously on The Ashes on the Star-Cursed King, Raihn half drags, half carries a severely wrecked Raihn to his apartment in the human districts, where he immediately chooses emotional damage as his love language. He gives her a drawing of her mother, gives her her mother's necklace, and a letter with answers he spent hours digging up for her. Oh, and an exit plan out of Obitraes. Very, I love you, now leave. But Raihn does not leave. Instead, she kisses him and they proceed to have an aggressively emotional, extremely spicy reunion involving begging, blood, and feelings so intense they should have come with a warning label. Peak vampire romance. Then, because this book refuses to let anyone rest, Raihn and Raihn wade through a literal poop river to rescue Misha, Vale, and Lilith from the castle. Upon her escape, Misha immediately kills the Shadowborn prince, and no one is sad about it. The group escapes into the desert and camps out in the caves Jasmine has been using as home base for the Hiyaj troops. While there, everyone has their big feelings conversations. Raihn and Jasmine, Vale and Raihn, Raihn and Misha, Raihn and Raihn. Also, Raihn and Araya's bodies have a big conversation in the caves. Once everyone has trauma bonded sufficiently, it's time to attack Sibernage. Vale and Jasmine strategize like professionals. Things are going okay until Simon shows up wearing a god teeth necklace like cursed bling and unleashes terrifying new powers. Chaos erupts, Raihn is gravely injured, Raihn orders a full retreat and panic flies her to the eastern districts. Desperate to save her life, he finds Araya's aunt, Alia, who just happens to be a healer. So in conclusion, love is real, god teeth are dangerous, and caves are a great place to process your feelings.
My goodness. That's so funny. That was a good way to, in conclusion. Great, Whitney. I love it.
I think I'm just going to do that at the end of every recap now. So, in conclusion.
In conclusion, I like it. That's a good one.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
so funny. This was a really kind of crazy stretch of chapters because so much happened. And I feel like you got two of the most intense spicy scenes out of the
Yes.
duology ever.
Well, they're kind of the only spicy
Yeah,
scenes
you're
in this
right.
book, and they're both in this section. So,
Yes.
if you've been waiting, everybody, for your
Here it
spice,
is.
here it is.
Here it is.
The wait is now over. Well, Kenz, I would love to know what your
Yes.
Romantasy Remedy was from this part of the book. What
Yes.
was your book therapy?
So I love the beginning of the stretch of chapters, specifically 43 through 45, when Araya has just rescued Raihn. He was on the rooftop. She got him out of there and they went to the human district. If you remember, he has a secret apartment there and they had their like bad beer and things there before. But while she was there, the sun was coming up and she was having a hard time. And one thing that I really liked was a man. If you remember, a man helped them. He was the doorman, basically. She thought they kind of got caught, like, oh no, this human. But he helped them inside and he's like, what he's done for the human districts, if I can help, I'll do it. And I think that really kind of shifted Araya's mood right away. And there's kind of three things that I noticed in this stretch that I want to talk about. Well, first, love is a choice. It's not an obligation. And I feel like in this
Ooh, Kenzie, that was so profound.
Thank you.
Tell me more.
I feel like in this stretch of chapters, she really was given that choice and she made that choice because I feel like in her life up to this point, it has been an obligation. Like think of her relationship with Vincent. And I don't know if it's an obligation or it was just out of survival and necessity. She didn't ever get to choose to have that relationship with him. And I think that that's kind of been a pattern for her in her life. Even in the first book, we saw her relationship with Misha and Raihn. She chose it, but out of survival. And this
Right. She was literally about to die.
Right.
So she's like, fine, I guess I'll be allies with you.
Right. So I think that that was the big thing that stuck to me is love as a choice because the escape itself, right? Araya's instinct to run versus Raihn's instinct to protect, and how this escape felt different than past ones because she wasn't alone anymore and she took him. That was a choice, right? Specifically, the quote where he said, go somewhere far away, go to the human nations, go learn about your magic. I tell you to go become something fucking incredible, Araya, but you already are, and this place doesn't deserve you. It never has, and I sure fuck don't. Lots of F-bombs in that one.
Raihn.
But it was like
Raihn does like that word.
he does. But he was so sweet and he was so intentional in that moment that she's had so many questions her whole life, right? About her mother and the fact he had spent so much time and then was very intentional about saving that gift for this moment.
I love that you pointed this out because one thing that we have seen come up for both Raihn and Araya is that the other one always sees them, the real version of them. And this is another instance I feel where Raihn shows that he does see the real Araya.
Yes.
Because she doesn't admit it, but she is dying to know more about herself and her mother and her story. And like Araya says, he must have spent hours and hours and had to put so much effort into finding these items that are from her mother when he surely had many, many other things on his plate. So that alone shows the depth of his feelings for her.
Right.
And I don't know if this moment was kind of forced. I'm not sure when he was planning to give it to her, but I think the reason it happens now is he just feels like they're kind of on the brink of everything falling apart and he wants to give her these things before it's too late, get her to safety before, he gets killed or they both get killed or whatever. I just love that you brought that up because it definitely shows the depth of his love for Araya.
Oh, for sure. And I love that he showed his love to her without ownership because I feel like Vincent, he loved her, but it was an ownership kind of love. She didn't really have choices or options or things, like he owned her. And I think that he showed her true love without ownership. And that's huge.
Yeah.
There's a quote towards the end after their super spicy scene. She said, I felt for the first time in so long, safe. Safe for the first time since the last time I had woken up like this in Raihn's arms. I think for her, this was a moment where she realized that safety isn't a weakness, it's a trust thing. Because I think she always thought that safety meant that she was weak in all the
Right.
other
Like if
books.
she's letting her guard down and allowing herself to feel safe,
Yes,
that's a sign of her being weak. Yes.
right. And so this is the first time I think she realized that it was a trust bond that she had and that safety was a good thing. It was a trust thing. And so I think that was special too. Um,
Yeah. And that
yeah.
was another one of Rain's phrases with her. I don't remember if he says it in this. No, he does say it in this book. Actually, I think he says it in the spicy scene. But when he always tells Araya, "You are safe."
Yes.
As you're pointing out, I think this is the first time she actually believes that.
Yes. Yes.
In a way, I think actually, if I remember right, tell me if I'm wrong. I think in this section, in these chapters, he says it and then she kind of laughs because she's like, there's nothing safe about this. This is so not safe. But at the same time, what you're describing is not, physical safety. It's that emotional safety.
Yeah.
And I think that for the first time, she does feel safe around
Absolutely.
someone emotionally.
Well, and I think it's important to point out a part of her getting to that point was when Rain presented her with that gift. It wasn't just giving her that gift, it was preserving her past, and he wasn't demanding anything in return. And he also wasn't using it against her, he was protecting her past. And that's a huge safety thing for her, too, especially with the vampire world and as cutthroat as it is, that they'll use those things against you. And so I think it shows how also Rain, he has no need for the power or cruelty, and he really shows it. It's a stark contrast with Vincent's world. And
For
so
sure.
it's a big shift
His
for her.
his intentions and motivations are so different from Vincent, from other
Yes.
vampires. He's motivated by his love for Rhea, and even the things that he does as the Nightborn King. I feel like those things have different motivations too. I
For
think
sure.
he wants to improve people's lives. The guy at the apartment building,
Yes.
he has done things to make life better for humans in Obitraes, not just to make the vampires and himself more powerful. I almost feel like he has learned a lot too in the last few months when he had to kill Vincent and all that stuff
Right.
happened. He learned from all of that.
Yes.
And to me, this part shows he's not willing to sacrifice Araya any further for any more power or to, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
she is coming first now. And I love that about Rain. I love that he's learned from what's happened. He has the right motivations and he's putting the people he loves first.
Yes, agreed. Well, and I like what you said. It's the first time she doesn't feel like she's being used or trained or controlled. Like she's truly just being loved for who she is. There she is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There she is.
There she is.
Absolutely, yes.
And then
Oh.
the best love scene ever, but that quickly ends, like you said, in the
Yeah.
poop tunnel.
Can I just say, before reading this book,
Uh-huh.
I was never a Twilight girly. I didn't
Uh-huh.
mind the movie Twilight, but I never read the books, and I didn't watch any movies other than the first one.
Have you ever
And
read the books?
no, I haven't.
Oh,
That's surprising, right?
It is surprising. You need to put that on your 2026 TBR just for fun.
I probably should,
just so
as,
you can.
It's like part of your fantasy education. You need to have read Twilight. Well, and I just did not anticipate loving the vampires as much as I do, and I especially thought it was going to be weird to have a vampire love scene for there to be
Yeah.
fangs and
Yeah.
blood.
Yeah, that
However,
It was good though.
I didn't hate it. Carissa proved me wrong again. So
No.
well done, lady.
Well,
Good
and
job.
it was really good. And there was a part where Araya let him drink from her, but it was the first time he said that anyone has from him that was his choice, and it wasn't Neculi or
Huh?
Simon, and he was actually able to like freely give it to someone. So I think there's a lot of choice in this
For
section
sure.
on both ends.
For sure.
Yeah.
I love that theme that you pulled out of this, that theme of choice and being able to choose who you love, choose where your
Yes.
life's gonna go,
Yes.
choose all of these things. It's so good. I also loved that part of this love story that it wasn't just Araya who was overcoming some past
Yes.
traumas and difficulties, but Raihn was too.
Most
And
definitely. Yeah.
how happy for both of them that they were able to do that for each other.
Yes.
So romantic, so
It
lovely.
was. It was good. It's just so good.
There is one quote right at the beginning of the spicy scene
Uh-huh.
just about their initial kiss that
Uh-huh.
I love. I think we used it on our Instagram account as a daily dose once. Maybe
Uh-huh.
I'll use it again now that we're talking about it on the podcast, but it's right after they kiss, and she says the kiss was like a thunderstorm over the summer desert, a torrent that swept in all at once, obliterating the heat, so all-consuming that suddenly you remember nothing but the rain.
R-A-I-N or R-H-A-I-N?
Well, it's spelled
I
R-A-I-N,
know.
but that's a fun play on words, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's good. Well, I'm glad you said that because actually at the end, I think it was Rain that said it felt like a religious ritual, like finding faith. So she bookended that very well. Yeah.
So good.
What about you?
Well, that part definitely was book therapy for me for all the reasons you just said. Another part that was a romantasy remedy were all of the cave conversations. And I'm just going to nickname these chapters the cave conversations. That will be their name now. I didn't notice until this reread how literally everyone has a mini trauma bonding session in the cave. So it's fun. First, you have Araya and Jasmine, and they kind of end up talking about Vincent. And Jasmine brings up how she and Vincent had a physical relationship, but that he never really emotionally was in it with her. And Jasmine makes a comment that one reason for that is loving someone as a vampire king is dangerous.
Yeah.
And he already had exposed himself enough by loving Araya. And of course, that hits Araya hard because she is constantly having this internal struggle about whether or not Vincent loved her. And hearing Jasmine say it causes all kinds of feelings.
Yeah.
And then I imagine the camera like panning over to Raihn and Vale now. So we leave Jasmine and Araya, and now we go to Raihn and Vale, and it's kind of funny actually. They're in the water in the cave.
Yes.
I guess taking a bath.
Like,
Vale kind of approaches Raihn, and Raihn actually makes a funny comment like, homeboy could be off with his wife naked having a bath and he's over here trying to talk to me instead. So that was funny. But the reason Vale approaches him is to apologize. He apologizes to Raihn for what happened to him. He apologizes for being complacent.
yes.
And he does make a point to tell him that he did not agree with the way Raihn was treated, but that wasn't enough. He should have tried to do something about it. And the reason, he feels this way now is because of Lilith.
Right.
And she's totally changed his perspective on humans and turned vampires and all of it. And so they end the conversation with Raihn again promising him that she will be safe in this kingdom. But he goes a step further to say that as long as Araya is in power, she will be safe. I think almost to give a backup plan in case something happens to him. He wants Vale to know that Araya will also ensure her safety.
Right.
So that was sweet.
I agree. I think it says a lot about Rain in this moment too, because if you think about it, him and Vale have a complicated relationship because he was there during all of those years where Rain was tortured and like a slave to these people,
Sexually
basically.
abused.
Yeah. So the fact that I think it speaks a lot to Rain's character that he's able to like, move forward and has sight on the big picture for other people and not just himself. I think it says a lot
Yeah.
about him.
I agree. The recent events in the book, I think, have helped him do that because
sure.
remember, he suspected that Vale was the one who wasn't
Yes.
loyal to him. So I think finding out that it was actually Carissa and not Vale, and I think there's a moment where they describe rescuing Vale and then they go and rescue Lilith next.
Right.
And I can't remember whose POV it's in, but it's probably Raihn. He talks about how Vale cradles Lilith
Yes.
when they find her. And I think seeing his genuine affection and love for Lilith, as well as finding out that he is being loyal to Raihn,
Right.
has helped him maybe not totally forgive Vale or forget what he did, but be open to that relationship.
Yeah. It was a good critical conversation.
Yeah, I'm proud of Il for the growth. I'm proud of him for apologizing to
Yeah.
Raihn, admitting his mistakes. Very cool. And then we finally have a very tender conversation with Raihn and Araya. Now, I'm talking about the verbal conversation, not the physical conversation.
And those are
um,
conversations.
I actually really loved some of the quotes from their conversation. They talk about their air marks, and
Yes.
Raihn says that he hates his, basically, because it reminds him of neculi. And then Araya makes this sweet comment to him about how it is made for him. It's perfectly suited to his skin and his body, and it belongs to him. And then a few minutes later, she's basically doing the same thing with her air mark,
Right.
pretending it's not hers and it's Vincent's. And Raihn turns her words around and basically repeats them back to her, saying, "It's your air mark. It belongs to you." And they just were so good for each other in this conversation. They really built each other up.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Well, and I like how you said that. And actually, I think later Araya actually says, strange that these marks supposedly branded them as enemies, yet they were obviously mates to each other. So it's funny that they
Yeah.
had that conversation.
Yeah, it is. And that's interesting to me because is it Nyaxia who designs the air mark? Doesn't really
Right.
matter. I just wonder if it was intentional for the air marks to be that way or if it's
Right.
just a result of Raihn and Araya's relationship. But it's almost like they've matching tattoos, right? They have these marks that belong together. And they've just talked to everybody about their battle plan, basically, of how they're going to go back and attack Sivernage. And there's a moment where Araya says to Raihn, "Do you really think we can do this?" I murmured. And then Raihn goes, "At the very least, I sure as hell believe you can." So good. I love his total confidence in her.
Oh, he does. And I think he also did his iconic one honest thing in that moment
Yes,
too. It
they
was
do
so
have a one
good.
honest thing. It's
Yeah.
so true. It's so true. And they, of course, start having a moment and they kiss. And Araya says that it was the kind of kiss that made doubts wither, the kind that made it easy not to think about difficult realities. So that is sweet. And another thing I love from the cave spicy scene is that Raihn at one point tells her, "I missed you." And Araya kind of thinks about this, and in her mind, she thinks, "I missed you a week without touching him," because they couldn't touch each other while they were traveling, apparently.
Right.
A week without touching him, and I missed him. Months without his friendship, and I missed him. It wasn't about a week, and it wasn't even about sex. It was about everything before that, repairing some chasm that had opened in our relationship, finding, terrifyingly, how much we had mourned what had been lost in that gap. And I love that because she's really speaking to the depth of their relationship. It's not just about like the physical pleasure.
Right.
It's about so much more than that. Their friendship, she mentions, after so much of this book where she is kind of in denial about how she feels about
Yes.
Raihn, it was great to finally see her acknowledging the connection that they have.
For sure.
And
I
for what
think
it is.
this stretch of chapters is definitely where that shift happened for her, because the first part of this book, she wanted nothing. She was just so confused with all the things that had happened and all of her feelings. So this is that big shift, I think, for her.
Yeah.
This
And I can't
stretch.
blame her.
Oh, no. No
Homeboy
doubt.
killed her dad, but
She has every right to have the feelings
Yeah.
she has.
yes, for sure. For sure. So loved the cave conversations.
Yes.
Verbal and otherwise. And it kind of ends with a conversation between Raihn and Misha.
Yes.
Now, Raihn had been trying to talk to Misha because he can tell she's off. And then Araya straight up tells Raihn that he needs to talk to her. She doesn't
Yeah.
tell him why, doesn't tell him the exact reason, but she tells him he needs to talk to Misha. So remember, Araya was there when Misha killed the Shadowborn Prince,
Yes.
and she also, without Misha really telling her everything, she knows who he is. She knows
She
what that
connected the
meant for
dots
Misha.
on that one. Yeah.
Exactly. So Raihn finally pins Misha and is able to talk to her. She doesn't want to talk to him about this, but he makes her.
Yes.
And I loved, first of all, Raihn and Misha's friendship is one of my favorite things in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. And his rage about this Shadowborn Prince is the best. He says, I had smiled at that prick. And then Misha goes, I shouldn't have killed him. And Rain's all, I was so furious I barely heard her. I probably looked ridiculous hunched over this stupid little rock, shaking like a madman. I'd say I should have killed him, but I'm glad you got to be the one to do it. So he's just like so viscerally angry
Yes.
at this Shadowborn Prince. And I love that he and Misha are those kind of friends, that he feels that.
Oh, absolutely. I love that, like you said, he had a visceral reaction to it. He truly loves her, and their friendship is unbreakable. And poor Misha, I feel so bad that she felt like she shouldn't have, because him being a Shadowborn Prince, she was so worried, but he didn't care about that. And that's one thing that Rain has showed throughout. He doesn't care about the politics of things and how it's going to look with the other kingdoms and stuff. He truly is loyal to his friends and his people, and that never wavers.
Right. And at the same time, in this conversation with Misha, he again learns some things. He has a
Yeah.
couple epiphanies, right? For example, Misha goes, you sacrificed Araya, and I know how hard that was for you. And he kind of has this epiphany like, oh, I thought I was making this big sacrifice,
Right.
but it was Araya who had to shoulder all of the weight of that.
Right.
And now Misha's having to shoulder all the weight of that. Like, it's not me who's
Right.
suffering here. And so he realizes that. And then their conversation wraps up with him saying to Misha, I'm sorry that it happened to you. I'm sorry that I couldn't stop it. I'm sorry you had to fight this alone. I'm sorry you felt like you couldn't tell me. I'm sorry I made you feel like it wouldn't matter if you did. So again, learning from his mistakes and trying to make
Yeah.
it right. And that is one reason that Raihn should be on more book boyfriend lists. He is,
Yes.
it's a good guy.
We've talked about this before, but when I read, I forget how good some guys are, how some of our book boyfriends are, and I fall in love with the next one and the next one and the next one. But going back and doing these, I'm like, he is just top tier. He really is in so many different ways. Just the kind of friend he is should put him on the top of the list.
Yes. Yes. And one other thing we love about Raihn is his sense of humor. So this quote was from earlier in this section, and I had to read it because it's like your Raihn genius. So remember, for them to rescue everybody, and they had to sneak into the castle, and they just swim
Yeah.
in a river that was full of poop and sewage, basically. And so he was really eager to take this bath in the caves because he was disgusting. So they swam through the poop river. They had to fly across the desert to get to the cave.
Yes.
So just painting a very accurate picture for you guys. And Raihn says, it was hard to play the convincing role of the confident Rishon king to a bunch of my greatest enemies while coated in 2-week-old shit. So
That's about right. He really does have like the best comedic timing, because even after Araya rescued him from the roof and she's leading him through the streets, and they get up to the apartment and he was moving and she's like, no, don't move. You need a rest or whatever. He's like, what does he always say that? It's his tits. It was just the sun. Like, chill
Yeah.
out.
Fine, woman, leave me alone.
He's so funny.
Oh my gosh.
But
so
anyway.
good. Yes, but the cave conversations, surprisingly, were my book therapy. They were great. So good.
Honestly, that's a great way to call it, the cave conversations. Now, anytime I need to have a critical conversation, we need to have a cave conversation.
Yeah, let's go in the cave. Let's go talk through our feelings.
Yes.
The cave of feelings. Oh my gosh.
Oh, so funny.
And one other thing we cannot forget to discuss, because we've been doing this every time we have had an episode about this book, is Septimus Watch, to be specific. He is not around very much, to be honest. The only time he's mentioned, or the only time we see him, is when they are in the battle. I believe it's Raihn or Rhea, somebody sees him standing in the ballroom of the castle, smoking a cigarillo and smiling as Simon is donning his god teeth necklace and unleashing weird power on everybody. So
Septimus.
That's it. That's it.
Could you imagine like the rage you would feel if you just see someone like,
sucks to be you, man? That's probably what he was thinking. Sucks to be you. So there you go. That's Septimus Watch for today. Wish I could tell you more, but in true Septimus fashion, he was sneaky, and there's nothing else to be said. And that's where we're going to end our exploration of the Ashes and the Star-Cursed King for today.
Before we go, let's take a quick moment to express gratitude to a character who we admire from the stretch of chapters. I think it would only be appropriate to thank Raihn today because he gave Araya his choices. He showed what a great friend he could be, and he knows how to say sorry and learn from his mistakes and not do them again. And it reminds me that love rooted in respect and accountability is the kind that can truly endure.
I love that. Raihn totally deserves a
Yes,
thank you note from us. Thank
he
you
does.
for giving Araya choices, for giving Veil. Thank you
Yes.
for learning from your mistakes and trying to make it right.
I could definitely learn from my mistakes and try to make them right. We could all learn from Raihn with this.
Oh, yeah, I think we're all working on that.
Always
A
and
lifelong
forever.
endeavor, I think, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes, thank you, Raihn. Well, with that, we've reached the end of the main portion of our episode. Thank you so much for listening. Look for Romantasy Remedy on Instagram and TikTok. Check the show notes for those links, as well as links to the printable affirmation and the soundtrack playlist on Spotify. Quick note about that. I want to tell you one other song that's on there. So this song I pictured during the whole conversation and spiciness in the Human District's apartment. It's a song called Poison and Wine by the Civil Wars. Have you ever heard this song?
No, but I'm going to go check it out.
Yeah, you should. There are a couple lyrics in it that I feel like connected to Araya and Raihn. For example, there's one part where it says, "Your hands can heal, your hands can bruise. I don't have a choice, but I still choose you." So the whole song is basically about, people who are in love, but they have to choose. They have to choose to love
It's
each
a
other, like you were
choice.
saying. So,
Yes.
yeah, it just,
I love it.
and it totally reminded me of Raihn and Araya. So
Ah,
it's on there. It's on the Spotify playlist.
I'm going to go check it out.
Listen.
I'm
Mhm.
excited. Well, we're all really looking forward to connecting with you and nerding out over all the best romantasy. After this, we'll begin our spoiler central segment of the episode, which you shouldn't listen to if you haven't finished the entire series, including the rest of this book. And I'm so excited. I get to be part of it today. But you've been warned.
Yes, this is your big, big warning to turn off the episode if you haven't finished all of
Yes.
the Crowns of Nyaxia books, which was Kenzie up until a couple weeks ago. So
Yes.
now she's going to hang out with me in Spoiler Central.
So excited.
I'm so happy. Much less lonely this way. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to mention in Spoiler Central today, this is when we learn a little bit more about Araya's mother being a sorceress. From the
Yes.
things that Raihn gathered in the castle, we find out that she was a sorceress and an acolyte of Acacia,
Right.
who is a member of the White Pantheon.
Right.
And if you've read the series, that name is definitely going to ring a bell because in Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, we meet Selena, who is
Yes.
a member of the Arachesin, who are really devoted zealot acolytes of Acacia.
Right.
So that's a
They-
fun connection to
Yeah.
make.
Devoted is, yes, absolutely devoted.
Well, a little crazy, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think Araya's mother was as crazy as the Arachesin are, but
She didn't have a blindfold, so we can
no,
assume.
thank goodness. She had her eyes fully intact. Goodness. Oh my gosh. We'll get to talk all about how crazy they are when we start our episodes about Slaying the Vampire Conqueror,
Right.
which will be so
and
fun.
we hear a lot about her in the Misha one. What's the last one with the sword?
Yes, in Songbird and, well, actually even more so in Fallen. I feel like
Yeah,
you start to
Fallen in the Kiss
interact
Nest.
even more with Acacia.
Right.
And in the next chunk of chapters in Ashes, we'll also be talking about Acacia. So
Yes. Get ready.
just, you're gonna keep hearing about Acacia. She is in it now. One thing I wanted to mention that's not really moving forward in the Crowns of Nyaxia timeline, it's actually hopping back to Six Scorched Roses there, and it's just a fun little side note. There's a quick description of Lilith's wings in chapter 50, and I thought that was so fun because Lilith is a turned vampire.
Right.
she hasn't been a vampire for very long, so I just thought it was really cool to hear that her wings are beautiful speckled amber that match the color of her hair. I was like,
say
oh,
amber's
I love
fitting
that.
for her, for sure.
Love that. Lilith's beautiful wings.
And I think it's fun to hear that about her because we know with Araya finding her wings, and now we know with Lilith finding hers, and it's
get
fun
their
to see that.
wings.
Yeah, correct.
So cool. And then the last point I have for Spoiler Central today, I want to touch on Misha, totally annihilating this Shadowborn prince.
Oh, man.
When you read The Songbird in the Heart of Stone, you find out that this prince's name was Malik. And at the beginning of the book, Songbird in the Heart of Stone,
Yes.
Ygritte, who's a Shadowborn princess, she uses her mind magic to kind of rifle through Misha's mind and accesses this exact memory of Misha killing Malik.
Who's her brother? Is Ygritte's brother, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that was interesting to kind of read side by side, Misha actually killing Malik in real time, and then Ygritte watching it in her mind in Songbird in the Heart of Stone. And then when Misha first meets Asar in Songbird, Asar says that murdering Malik was a great service. So that tells you how he feels about Malik.
Yes.
And then later in Songbird, we find out that Malik murdered Asar's beloved pet dog, Luce. And so if you didn't hate him before that moment, you start to hate him a lot then.
Yeah. We
all
don't tolerate
Luce.
that.
No. Turning Misha into a vampire, not great. Don't love it. But killing Luce is absolutely unacceptable.
Yes.
So.
Never going to be okay.
But yeah, so there's a couple little notes about Malik, the Shadowborn prince. Prince of Pricks. That's what his name should be.
Oh, man.
Oh, gosh.
Lots on Spoiler Central.
Yeah. So
Yay.
there's your first Spoiler Central, Kenzie.
It's so fun to make these connections once you finish. And then it's fun to then go back and reread these chapters because you're like, oh.
Yes. All the foreshadowing and little clues along the way.
Yes.
You get to go back and see them.
Yes.
So thank you for doing Spoiler Central with me today,
thank
Kenz.
you.
And thanks to everybody. Thanks again for listening. And we will see you next time on Romantasy Remedy.